Well, thank you for coming back to visit us again. And we've talked to you guys about our work. I'm here with Allison Heverland. And we're here at Art on 6th Street. But something that we have out in the studio a little bit different today that we also do is custom work. So we're doing custom lighting. We've had 2 orders for bird baths today where Ron Miller's doing the steel and we're doing the bird bath. We also work with Alan Heverland in Suite 223. So quite a few of us are collaborating on sculptures and all sorts of different things that we can do to make your home special. So we can come over here and just pan our wall where we have storyboards talking about some of the home installations that we've done. And these are photos of them up on the wall. You can see some of the custom sconces that we do, and we can provide the fixture as well. This is a custom sconce with the woodwork. Pendant light chandelier. Here we've got sconces. On this sconce, we actually fabricated the steel and it's cast glass. So it's a little bit more involved, but we actually built the entire fixture. So we can look at your house, look at what you like, do samples for you, and then make something that's really special that's just made for you.
So this one was started out by a drawing. So that's what we initially start out with. We talk about color and design with the homeowner. We create a sample piece, which is actually here. And they would okay it, and then we start building the light fixture.
So we're really enjoying doing that. And Allison, one of the other things that we didn't have out when you guys came for a studio visit was all of Allison's jewelry set up. We usually sell this at Art Squared or somewhere here other than the studio, but during the openings on 6th Street, you have the option to get it here. And over here we have, were you going to do that? We could, but we do these big slabs of glass. We did that? Okay. So over here we have some of our actual fixtures laid out so that you can see them. We can make household items, fruit bowls to match your pendants. This is a pendant that we did that the storyboard is over there. This is going to become a tabletop, this piece, and Alan Heverland is going to be building the wood table that this will be inset into. And then this piece will end up being a sculpture, so it's destined for steel. So thank you for coming and looking again, and these are the new things that we have, and we'd love to have you come by and, see if we have anything that you would love to have.
I'm Bondu Dunham, and this is my studio. We have a little bit of a showroom area in front here with a few of my larger pieces. This is one of my marble machines. It's called Calvin. The names of my marble machines are often they stand for something. So acronym, that's the word I was looking for. It's an acronym. So Calvin is consciously accelerated living values individual nuances. So it's a motorized machine. The marbles go up in a couple of stages. They go up to the top. Then they divide into a couple of different tracks. They come down and they get recirculated in at the bottom. And so the marbles make a continuous loop. I did the glass, starting with the glass rods, and I made the marbles too. And then there's some parts that aren't glass, the belts obviously, and the elevator mechanism on this has some metal and some plastic on it. But it's quite a process. I've been working on kinetic glass sculpture for a few years, and there are many technical challenges. Got most of them worked out at this point. So this is a working model steam engine. It has all the parts of an actual steam engine. It will run on steam or compressed air. I just hook it up with a motor for display purposes. It has what's called a double acting piston. I had to learn all this when I was figuring out how to make these. Double acting piston means the steam pushes both up and down. And then there's a valve. So this is the piston. You can see it going up and down as if it had steam pushing it. And then this is the valve. The valve controls which way the steam is going. So the steam either comes in from the bottom and pushes it upward and the exhaust comes out the top, or the steam comes in from the top, pushes it down, and the exhaust comes out the bottom. So that's what this valve does. And then the valve is tied back into the crankshaft so that it maintains consistent timing. And that's how they actually made steam engines back in the day. There were actually some glass steam engines made by traveling troops of glassblowers in the 1800s, because back then steam was the sexy cutting-edge technology. And it's a great educational tool because you can actually see how all the parts work together. And that's one of the things that really fascinates me about kinetic glass. So a glass-blowing lathe is similar to like a wood lathe or a metal lathe, except that the tail stock is driven independently because your glass gets soft in the middle, so you can't just drive it from one end. You have to have both ends be synchronized. And then there's a spline that runs down there that enables me to slide the tailstock back and forth so I can stretch the glass or compress it together while it's rotating in synchronized fashion. And then I have a blow hose that I blow into to inflate the glass. It goes through a manifold and into a swivel at the end of the tube here so it doesn't get tangled up. So I can blow and stretch and compress all at the same time. So I'm going to make a little hummingbird feeder like this. I can get it to light. There we go. You warm the glass just a little bit. Okay. Oh. This filters out some of that yellow flare. If you hold that up in front of your lens, you'll be able to see better what I'm doing. Bring those together. Now that loops a little bit off center. I want to straighten that out. So now I'm going to get more of this glass soft. I'm compressing the tube together end to end to gather more glass together. Then I'm going to blow a bubble. Keep the heat off it. Good. I use those calipers to get the size about right. And make another little expansion down here. I'm going to stretch it and blow it thinner and thinner until it pops.
I'm Charlotte Dewalt, and I'm a jeweler, a member of the 6th Street Art Group, and we've been here and growing for about 5, maybe going on 6 years now. We have expanded to about 12 different studios. In this studio, we both create the work. I do all my jewelry fabrication and making here. And then this is also our sales studio. Back here, the jewelry process takes up a lot more work and space because of the equipment needed. And I do casting and of course my soldering using the acetylene and oxygen gas combination to create the heat. And so I do all the fabrication and cutting back here. I cast a lot of organic materials, ponderosa pine bark, and then these are getting ready to be cast. These are grapevines that I'll use in a piece of jewelry, and then a piece of bark from a swamp in Florida. And so when I'm out walking or hiking, I'm always looking for things that are interesting that I can cast, because it can't be too thin and it can't be too thick. And so I cast leaves and anything interesting that I can find and then use in jewelry later on. And it might take me several years to use it, you know, but if it looks interesting, I'll go ahead and cast it and then, you know, as time goes on, find a use for it. These pieces are Malkame Gane. It starts about this thick. This is 13 layers of brass, copper, and silver that I bond together under high heat and pressure in the kiln for 5 or 6 hours. And once they're bonded, they look like this. Then you take it and you carve it with a metal burr. And then your results are, you know, then you roll it out and you get, then your pattern becomes exposed of what you have carved. Yeah. And then some of these are, you know, this is like the casting process, you know, and that's what that looks like, yeah.
These are unknown women. They're probably all of the age of the early 1900s. I know that photograph was taken in 1898 by a pretty famous photographer, and he named her Hattie Tom and just said 1898 Apache Chiricahua tribe, and that's really all that I know about her. So, but what attracted me to these was the sepia color, and the fact that it's just one color and you don't think about color, you just think about values. And values is what every artist tries to concentrate on mostly. And so these are mostly studies for larger paintings that I'll do. I've done one of Hattie here, and that's over at the Mountain Artists Guild on display. So these are initial studies, see what I think of the result in a small format, and to see if it would be appropriate for a very large format. All the rest of the stuff here, I've been doing work as an artist for maybe 20 years, since about early 2000. So I've tried everything at this point. What I like to do more than anything else is portraits. And so I first did dozens and dozens of little 8x10s of very interesting faces, and I still do that a lot because portraits of people intrigue me actually more than anything else.
So I'm Joan Knight, Wearable Arts. I design and make my own creations out of recycled fabrics and also upcycled vintage fabrics from different countries, India and Mali, and I'll show you what I do. These are my sweater coats that I make from upcycled sweaters from the thrift stores, and I cut them up and make them into beautiful coats And I've been selling these for probably about 10 years now, and I make about 20 of them per year. Moving right along, I make things out of quilts from India, Kantha quilts, and that you can see, you can either buy a quilt and make one yourself, or you can make a coat.
So are these reversible?
Yes,
Oh, that's
the
great.
coats are reversible.
Do you think this is the right size for me?
I do. I think that's beautiful.
I do too.
I love you can't see the back, but the back is so pretty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Try the other side too.
Yeah, yeah, so. And always 4 pockets.
You know, I like these because they're not really, they look like they're really warm, but
Uh-huh.
they're good for
They're
like,
not.
you know,
And-
even the evenings now.
And Kantha, you can see here, Kantha means stitched. And what the women do, the women of India go to the rag piles. They'll pick out cotton or silk saris, pound them together in new cloths, layer them, and hand stitch them by hand with a running stitch with no thimble. And so it's amazing. It's a 400, I don't know, maybe longer, probably longer, tradition that the women support their families, women and men support their families with. So there's that.
This is nice how you did these borders. This is great.
Yeah, that's cute, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're all, these are, I go through cycles. I'll make a bunch of vests, I'll make a bunch of coats, and this year we have coats short and long. This one's a long one.
That's a nice length. It'll be nice with jeans.
Yeah. So moving right along, you can see here's some more quilts. I just stacked the quilts up here, and people can buy quilts and jackets. These are more tailored coats, bags. I make this silk cold shoulder tops, scarves. I make, just in the pandemic, I made cards and things for our walls, little trees are wonderful at Christmas. These are my Squiggly Girl scarves. They are commercial, but I over dye them because I like my colors better than everybody else, and they are just too fun to throw on with jeans or whatever you're wearing, just for fun. And these are this is my brand new thing that I'm doing this year. These are kimono coats that I'm making that are made out of using ball cloth from the Ivory Coast of Africa called Bali cloth. And there's 2 different kinds. One of them is like these fronts, and the other one is the Shibori Itojima Resist, which is like this. And the boys the young boys in the tribe are, they start to teach them how to weave. It's the men who are weavers in these long, huge, out in the open, narrow looms that are about 4 inches wide. They do the strips, and then they sew them carefully together. These are all made of the strips, and then let's see if I can show you. This is a strip, then they sew them together, and then they make them into these cloths. I buy the cloths and I cut them up and I make these. Then sometimes I will add like Guatemala fabric, Guatemalan, or this one is Kantha quilt with a little bit of Bali cloth, and they are just really fun. So that's these are gauze scarves that I just make to go with my silky kind of hand dyed. This is called Devereux, and Devereux is burned out silk, and these are ponchos that I'm selling this year. So it's pretty full right now. I've been not sewing for 14 months, so I've got a pretty good inventory. So, and then silk scarves. Oh, and then I also do embellished denim coats, which I include the Kantha quilts and the Kantha scarves in embellishing them. And that's my whole thing right there.
Jonathan Decker with Roscoe Industries. We're on Navajo, and we make art and heavy metal structure. So most of our pieces are themed on particular principle, cutting on the machine. This is a bandsaw piece. These are all cut here locally, plasma cut, and welded here in Prescott, Arizona. So we also like to do industrial automation. This is our newest acquisition. This is a robotic welding arm that we're prototyping for building container storage units here in Prescott. And that's what we do when we're not making art. This one especially is one of my favorites. I made this for a lady, the first version of this for a lady, and she loved it. But these are just pieces we found in the scrapyard. And you know, we were tripping over them, and then like one day I was just so fed up I just had to make it. And this one was a collaborative project with Cindy Schaefer, and she helped me do all the glass work. And this one is really cool because it's posable. And we wanted to work it into a lamp, but that proved to be a little difficult. This was a piece that I was again tripping over under the plasma cutter, and I decided to cut it up, and we welded it together and turned it into another piece of art. Tiz Gallery actually needed some small pieces, and they were like, "We love your work, John, but we need small pieces." And so these two were specifically made to be small because to fit into Tiz Gallery, and they have been great selling some of my art. So thank you for visiting the studio here, and hope to see you soon.
All right, these are monoprints. That means there's only one of a kind. You put them through the press, and that's it. You can't ever duplicate them. And this one is entitled Drought, which we're experiencing, unfortunately. You can see the crack in the soil. This one, which is a totally much looser than that one, is Save That Water, which also is, I come from a ranching background, so this is very near and dear to me. And this one, they're not 3 crayons. Those are 3 steeples of churches in Mexico. And it's named Paz, which means peace. This one is named Choices. And to be perfectly honest, I couldn't think of a story when I sat down, so I just decided to divide the canvas into shapes, and which I love to do gestures. And I just filled it up with gestures. This one is entitled Unintended Consequences. Somebody came in and looked at that the other day, and they said, "We love the lyricism of your dancing one." So I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that one. This is called Ad Lib, and I think you can see why. It's a bunch of shapes and forms and colors. And this one is New Directions, which I think is self-explanatory. It's very necessary for all of us, especially during COVID, to think of new and better things to do.
Welcome to my studio. My name is Mary, and this is where I produce and make all the things you see here: the sculpture, the jewelry, the mosaics, and the clothing. And I've been at this location for I think 14 years now. I was the first artist here, and just walk this way. We have the sculpture here in the window, and some mosaics here, also outside. And let's see, clothing. And these are called eco prints. So they're printed from real leaves from Prescott. These are rose. And it's about a 13-step procedure, and they're all one of a kind. And then painted scarves, and then clothing, shirts, t-shirts. And I go to the resale shops and the thrift shops and I buy used one color, light or dark, and then if they're dark, I discharge, which I take the color away. Hi there, welcome to my studio. And take the color away, or I add color if they're light. Well, he's sculpted in concrete, so that alone takes a while. So I would say, and you sculpt, you know, first you have to do the armature, then you have to do the concrete sculpture, then you mosaic it. So I would say 40, 50 hours. I don't know, it depends. I just do it, I never really time it. And then she's concrete too, and the baby. The jewelry is made from either polymer clay, which is sculpture or Fimo, and various things added to it. Or I do jewelry collage, which is right over here, where you take other pieces of jewelry and just reorganize them.
Hi, I'm Alan Heverlin with Old Stage Enterprises here at 697 6th Street in Unit 223 of the Business Park here in Prescott, Arizona. My company is Old Stage Enterprises, and I do custom woodworking, finish work, furniture, bed frames, interior timber framing, glass chandeliers. The glass is done by the Astral Glass Studio down the street with Cindy Schaefer and Allison Heverland. And I hope someday you guys can come down and see me.
Hey, my name is Paul Landis, and I build mobiles, sort of in the style of everybody who builds mobiles knew Alexander Calder. And I've sort of followed Calder most of my adult life and started branching off into my own style. Everything that I work with starts out with just a blank piece of metal here, aluminum. I try to build with the thinnest material that I can, cut it into some shapes, and then just start finding some interesting things that work together, whether it's twisted, whether it's flat, whether they spin. But once I start designing something that comes together, it probably looks something like this, where if you have a ceiling fan or air conditioner, it's going to start moving things around a little bit. Mobile, you don't necessarily need tall ceilings for a mobile. You just need to protect this foot space underneath it. But of course, you know, you can hang these at just about any height. And there's just no end of what you can do with the medium. These are some tropical style fish. You see I have kind of a shaman bird shape in the back, and more in a classical style with, say, Alexander Calder, more of a flat, plain mobile with the different shapes. There's also mobiles hang from a ceiling, and anything that sits on a tabletop is what they call a stabile. And so these are some examples of stabiles, which are essentially little mobiles which hang on some structure that you built. I like working a lot with color shifting paint, like they use on hot rods. This is something that turns from, the greens turn to copper, the blues turn to purples. Doing things that involve, you know, real attention to balance in terms of getting something like this hoop to perfectly center around that post and yet still hang weight off in a direction to give it a little bit of movement. I also like working with curved shapes like this one, kind of an interesting one. You're seeing the gray in this shape now, but as it moves around, all of a sudden it'll shape, the shape will turn the colors from that gray to black and then disappear again back into gray again. So if you're by 6th Street Business Park, I'd welcome you to stop by. I'm in Space 100, and see the mobiles and see if we can't build something that'll work for you.
I am Ron Miller. I am a welded metal artist. I've been welding for 11 years since I retired from the city of Prescott. I took a welded metal sculpture class at Yavapai College and fell in love with it, and that became my retirement hobby. We're having a sale today at 6th Street Artists at our studios, and there are some of my items. I especially enjoy kinetic items where we have a ship on the ocean with a volcano in the background. The name of this piece is called Fuji Passage. Spinners of all kinds. This is a pirate mask that actually won an award at the Yavapai College Art Gallery show. The raven feather blew in yesterday, so I thought it was a good move. This is Ninja Warrior. Most of my work is made out of sheet metal, so it's all hollow, and part of my art is welding the seams so the welds don't show. So that my Japanese style bell eagle, 1/4-inch metal rod on the bird. This is where we do our welding, grinding, finishing, patina work, and cutting all sorts of metals. We got some more artwork here. Here's a female form here. Another boat on the ocean. Crosses are big now. And my winged warrior. And around the tools, sheet metal cutting with a Beverly shear, band saws, and if we go to the rear of the studio, we have our metal cutting and welding equipment. Grinders, MIG welders, MIG, metal inert gas welders, TIG welders, plasma cutter. Heavy steel welding table. This is an example of a beam support which will eventually go on a wall to hold up some ceiling beams. Plasma cut pattern, MIG welded sheet metal. Most of my work starts with a fairly precision paperboard pattern, which then gets shaped, the sheet metal, and then welded together for the components. I'm here as Ron Miller Metal Art, 697 6th Street, Unit 105. And thank you very much for coming and interviewing us today.
Around the wall, you'll see this is original art. And from this original art, we make prints. And you'll see the prints all over. And from this original art, we do also scarves. And that's our new venture right now. This is a working studio, and next door is sort of like storage. Our goal was to accumulate enough art so that we can start showing. And because we just started learning how to do art about 2.5 years ago. And we've accumulated now. That's why this is our first tour this year. And for about 24 years ago, we taught ourselves how to do art. But we also taught ourselves how to do silversmithing. And everything we're wearing came from that. And Medicine Men Gallery in Tucson sells our work there. And so this is a whole new venture for us, and we're having a really good time.
We are able to work in a variety of sizes, and also stylistically, we have a very varied art. For example, over here in this corner is a series of paintings done by Marcella. And you can see here we have two abstract art coupled very nicely with two representational pieces. And the sculpture is called Origami 3, and it's based on a folded paper design done in steel. And on our exterior, you probably noticed on the way in that we have some extremely large sculptures. This steel sculpture is called Origami, and it's constructed of steel from one large solid plate steel that has been folded to create the pattern. And this is called Origami 2. And Origami 2 was created by laying the same pattern out on a plasma cutter, cutting through, and each one of these pieces becomes one of the pieces in this sculpture.
This is a mask. The design came from the Cyclotic people, the islands around Greece, and their art is like 7 centuries before Christ.
This piece of 1/2 inch steel was actually taken from the construction of a mining sled that was created to be able to move rock crushers in a mine setting from one place to another. So when we saw the shape of this, it of course resembled the faces of these cyclotic figures, and the strength of the minimalist design is absolutely astonishing, that these people could create a mask, the feeling of a human being with just the addition of a simple element like the nose. So this is a tribute really to cyclotic art. It's a working studio, and in that far corner is all the milled wood, which we have milled to our specifications to be able to create the framing. So that right here at this table, we handle the construction of the stretcher boards, we stretch our own canvas, and finally we do museum quality framing, so that the piece, when it's finished, is ready to go into a museum, a home, or a commercial setting. This is a place where we have art storage, and we have quite a vast library of books which we use as inspiration for our art. And the rest of this room was designed by ourselves and built by John Decker, a local welder. It allows us to hang a lot of art and to be able to see it at the same time. The idea for this is a way that museums commonly handle their art storage. So these are all works of ours ready to be placed. This is another thing that this is our design of an easel that allows us to use.
The beauty is that it takes no floor space. That's the beauty.
It's steel, very strong, so we can support a very large painting and move it around easily.
And the other beauty is that this comes off. You can put it in the back, and now when you take photographs, you want it to be flat, so we can. And we do all of our own photography here on the other side of this.
So in terms of the photography, over here we have very large light banks that are covered in the front with polarizing filters that polarize the light, so that when we're set up to do the quality photography that produces our prints, we can hit the light from both sides at an angle, and we cross polarize so that any glare off of the varnish or finish is eliminated from the image. And this image was done as a view from Jerome. And what had happened here is some friends took this picture with their phone, and they were staying in Jerome at a bed and breakfast, and there had been a controlled burn off in the mountains, and it had filled the entire Verde Valley with smoke. And so this is actually, although it looks fanciful, this is actually the way it looked that day, looking down into the Verde Valley from Jerome, Arizona.
And the beauty of this, and why we loved it, and why he made this, is because both of us are from the Verde Valley. You know, we were raised there, and so it's like home, and so it's like it just was very, very close to our hearts. Our inspiration comes from everywhere, from everybody, from everywhere. Here, I'll make it here.